Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of The Grave, the podcast where I talk to friends, family, and even strangers about their paranormal experiences. Today, I'm trying something a little different. Season 4 is the season of experimentation, and today I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell it in as simple and in as concise a manner as I can. And at the end, I will explain a little more about everything. But this is The Grave, and we are all about the paranormal, so rest assured, this tale certainly sits in the realm of the supernatural, and at least to me, is a pretty damn chilling tale. For it to have its full and intended effects, this is best listened to alone, without distraction, and ideally, in a dark place. But of course, if you're on your way to work, in your car, is fine too. I just hope it's raining or at the very least, cloudy. This story takes place in a small alpine village at the turn of the century. A quiet place where most travelers only stayed long enough to sleep, grab a meal, and continue on their way. And one night a schoolmaster arrived here looking for nothing more than rest, who ended up experiencing one of the most disturbing nights of his life. A night in a room that technically shouldn't have been available. A room that carried a very real, very heavy imprint of what had taken place inside. It's late in the evening when the schoolmaster finally reaches the village. He's been traveling all day long through the mountains, cold, hungry, worn out, and he just wants a warm meal and a bed. He goes straight to what is basically the only inn in the town. The place is busy. Full dining room, bags stacked in hallways, people coming and going, and he approaches the front desk and asks for a room. The landlady gives a sympathetic look. She tells him the same thing she's been telling everyone that night. Sorry, we're full. She explains that a sudden wave of travelers passed through, plus the local search teams have been using rooms at the inn because earlier that week, a solo climber, an Englishwoman, went missing in the mountains. Searchers were coming in and out at all hours. Literally every spare room was taken. The schoolmaster blames himself for not writing ahead, but he decided to come at the last minute because the weather had cleared. A nearby porter and the landlady start arguing in this thick dialect that the schoolmaster can barely understand. They're gesturing toward random buildings in the dark like maybe he could go knock on doors and beg for a bed, and he's so tired that he actually considers it. But essentially they tell him that he's shit out of luck and he has to go find somewhere else to spend the night. So this poor guy steps back outside into the cold thinking he's going to be knocking on strangers' doors to possibly get a bed or maybe even sleep in the woods. He begins to head in the direction of the darkened town when suddenly the porter rushes out of the hotel and beckons for him to come back inside. The porter brings the schoolmaster back to the landlady and quietly whispers something into her ear. They whisper back and forth for about a minute. Maybe it's the cold, maybe it's the schoolmaster's exhausted expression, but finally, the landlady sighs and says, "There is one room." But she hesitates before explaining why it's available. The room belongs to the missing Englishwoman. Her belongings are still inside. Technically, no one should enter until she's found, or officially declared dead. But the search teams have spent 2 full days looking with no sign of her, and the landlady is starting to think that they won't find her alive. She warns him that the situation is sensitive, the room hasn't been touched since she left, but if he needs somewhere desperately and he keeps to himself, he can probably stay for the night. And without batting an eye, the schoolmaster agrees. The porter leads him upstairs, and the moment they reach the door, the schoolmaster notices something strange. The porter pauses. He avoids looking directly at the door, and when he hands the key to the schoolmaster, his hand is shaking slightly. But honestly, the schoolmaster is too tired to think very much of it at all. He unlocks the door, steps inside, and immediately feels uncomfortable. Not scared, just uneasy, like he's intruding. And to be fair, he is. He's in someone else's bedroom, someone who might be dead, someone whose things are still exactly where she left them. The room itself is ordinary, small, clean, with a slanted ceiling from the shape of the roof, a guidebook on the desk, a vase of dried flowers on the washstand. And there's one more thing, a tall wooden cupboard, or bureau as some might call it, in the corner. The door to this cupboard is locked. And as he starts unpacking, he keeps glancing over his shoulder, not because he hears anything, but because it feels like someone is still in the room, watching him from the corners. He imagines the door opening behind him and the English woman standing there alive, angry, demanding to know what a stranger is doing in her room. He tells himself he has a perfectly logical explanation, but it doesn't make him feel any better. He even half undresses while thinking about it, and the absurdity of the situation makes him quietly laugh. But that laugh dies instantly, because right behind it comes this dark thought, that while he's standing here in the warmth of her room, she might be lying somewhere on the cold mountains outside, her body frozen, the wind blowing snow over her hair, her eyes staring blankly at the sky. The image makes him shudder. Trying to shake the feeling, he quietly opens the door and puts his boots outside for cleaning. When he closes the door again, he locks it, not because he felt unsafe, but because the silence of the hallway makes the room feel even more isolated. He finishes unpacking. He only has a small bag and a knapsack, so it doesn't take very long. There's no dresser. The only place to put his clothes is a sofa near the wall. And then there's the cupboard. The landlady had mentioned that this is where the Englishwoman kept her belongings, and it seems untouched since the moment she left for her climb. But somehow the whole room feels occupied, not empty, but recently used. More like someone just stepped out for a moment and could return at any second. One moment he feels like she just left, the next moment it feels like she's still here, watching. The feeling becomes so disturbing that he does something impulsive. He grabs the dried flowers and he throws them out the window. Then he takes his coat and hangs it over the cupboard door to block it from view. He doesn't like seeing it. Something about the idea of that big wooden box filled with the clothes of a woman who might already be dead triggers a strange, creeping sense of horror. Something grotesque. Something deeply wrong. Coat in place, cupboard covered, he turns out the electric light and gets into bed. But the second the room goes dark, a rush of cold sweeps over him, unnaturally. He scrambles to relight the candle beside his bed, and he immediately notices his hand is shaking. That's the point where he tells himself he needs to get a grip. His imagination is running wild. He needs to calm down, regroup, and stop letting shadows dictate how he feels. But the fact that he has to tell himself this out loud is the first sign that the fear has already set in. After finally drifting off, he wakes up again around midnight, and something is different. A heavy mood presses down on him. Not fear, not anxiety, but despair. A deep sense of hopelessness that doesn't match anything happening in his life. It hits him so suddenly and so strongly that it feels foreign, like it doesn't belong to him at all. As the minutes pass, the feeling grows worse. This isn't normal sadness. This is the kind of hopelessness that makes you feel like nothing in your life matters. His job, his relationships, his goals, they all seem suddenly pointless. He's overwhelmed by the thought that hits him out of nowhere. Why keep going? And his eyes keep drifting back to the cupboard. Covered or not, its presence dominates the room. He feels pulled toward it, dragged by something he can't explain. Eventually, without consciously deciding to, he gets out of bed and walks directly toward it. He lifts his hand and knocks. It's only after that he realizes how strange this is. Why would he knock? Who did he expect to answer? And the moment he does, his entire body goes cold. He stumbles back panicking and rings for the porter. It's now 2 a.m. when the porter and chambermaid show up, groggy and confused. And they ask, what's wrong? The schoolmaster tells them the cupboard must be open right now. He doesn't give a reason because he doesn't have one, at least not one that he can explain. The porter tries to calm him down. He says the key is kept downstairs, he can get it in the morning. The schoolmaster refuses this explanation. He becomes frantic. He insists the cupboard must be opened immediately. Finally, the porter gives in and goes to fetch the key. When he returns, the schoolmaster steps back. Clutching the wall, he's now shaking. The porter fits the key into the lock, turns it. The door swings open. And immediately, something falls to the floor. It's another key. The key to the inside lock, which means the cupboard was locked from within. The chambermaid sees what's inside and screams. The porter and the schoolmaster rush forward. Inside the cupboard, hanging from an iron hook, is the missing Englishwoman. Her body is twisted forward, her face turned toward them as she slowly rotates from the movement of the door. Pinned to the inside of the cupboard is a hotel envelope. In shaky pencil handwriting, it reads, "Tired, unhappy, hopelessly depressed. I cannot face life any longer. I meant to do it on the mountains, but was afraid. I came back here. This way is easiest and best." And just like that, the schoolmaster understands exactly why the room felt the way it did. Why the air felt occupied. And why that hopelessness hit him so suddenly and so hard. He wasn't feeling his own thoughts. He was feeling hers. So, I am a huge Gothic mystery fan. I've probably read every single Edgar Allan Poe story, every one of Doyle's Sherlock Holmes tales, almost every Agatha Christie mystery, and throw some Jackson, M.R. James, and Braddon in there for good measure. Bottom line, I absolutely love a dark mystery, paranormal or otherwise. And I think a lot of these stories have been lost to time as I meet fewer and fewer folks who enjoy the classics. But despite this loss of interest in older fiction, I had this idea to retell some of these older creepy tales from some of the most prolific writers in the genre, but to update them and tell them in a way that is a little more modern. This story in particular is called The Occupant of the Room and was written by Algernon Blackwood, who is one of the most prolific ghost story writers in the history of the genre. This short story was actually made into a short film of the same name, which you can watch on Shudder, one of my favorite platforms for watching horror films. I found it to be particularly chilling, as I do most adaptations in this style, i.e. A Ghost Story for Christmas, which is an amazingly spooky seasonal tradition the BBC does every Christmas. And it's exactly as it sounds. Every Christmas, they give us a ghost story. Anywho, all this to say, in addition to my friends, family, and strangers telling me their own ghost stories, I thought it would be cool to tell you some of the stories that made me want to turn the lights on, or that were just super dark and very interesting. So if you like this new type of episode, please let me know. There are plenty more where this came from, and also if you know if there are any dark and or creepy stories that have been long forgotten about, definitely send them my way, and they might even end up in a future episode. And with that, as always folks, thanks for listening, and I hope to have you all back for some more scary stories.